black skin. He justified, he actually gave forth the scientific basis for segregation by saying that if white people rubbed up against black people, they could catch nigritude as well. Okay? His face is on the back of the DSM today. It's right here. Benjamin Rush, the first president of the American Psychiatric Association, who diagnosed black people with drapetomania. His face is still on the back of the book today, because psychology is still in the business of taking behaviors that black people engage in that are not of interest to the white social order and pathologizing them. That's what they do with ADHD. They take normal African boy behavior and call it a disease. Wow. But they'll take homosexuality, which was a disorder up until 1973, and now tell you it's normal. Why is it that homosexuality was illegal for all of American history until 1973? It was in this book until 73. They took it out in 73, 37 years ago. Why? As a population control tool to teach black children to cohabitate with people of like gender. If you do that, you split the population in half. AIDS is working, but it ain't working fast enough. Mass incarceration is working, but it ain't working fast enough. They needed something more effective. What can be more effective than convincing black schoolgirls to have sex with other black girls for the rest of their life? If you do that, you eliminate the need for babies altogether. Stop letting people suck you into the nature-nurture debate. It's not about nature or nurture. It's about racial extermination. It is no coincidence that homosexuality became normal in 1973, the same year the first documented cases of HIV/AIDS surfaced. It's all related. World Health Organization gave homosexuals in Los Angeles and New York City a smallpox vaccination. Within 5 years, every homosexual who was given a smallpox vaccination came up HIV positive. How is it that a disease that was originally championed as a disease of white gay males became the #1 killer for black women on the face of the earth? Because it was about you the whole time. It was about us the whole time. So now homosexuality being pushed through the Obama camp. That's his domestic agenda. Every president has two agendas, an international and a domestic. An international and a domestic. Obama's international is AFRICOM, to subdue Africa so the white Western corporate giants can come in and rape the rest of the resources. That's his international agenda. His domestic agenda is to make homosexuality the modus operandi in the black community by the time he leaves office. And they're doing it. Homosexuality is the new civil rights. A white child could call your child an N-word in school, they won't get expelled. Let your child say something to a homosexual child, you get expelled from school. It's the new civil right. That's right. That's right. And no, it is not your business whether or not the school teacher is gay or lesbian. You don't have a right to know that because they can't get discriminated against. At our historically black colleges and universities, you have brothers who cross-dress now. And the single brothers who don't want to be a roommate to a brother who's cross-dressing cannot request a change of roommate just because he is in a room with a cross-dressing black male. That's called sexual harassment discrimination. You can be kicked out of college for that. That's right. So homosexuality is taking over the black schools, it's taking over the black community, it's taking over the public schools, and it's all in the name of racial extermination. In 1972, the Rockefeller World Population Council and Planned Parenthood International said that homosexuality had to become a normal, accepted mode of behavior. In 73, the American Psychiatric Association had its annual convention where they voted to take homosexuality out of the DSM-4. 1974, Secretary Henry Kissinger pens the National Security Memorandum in 1974, and in that he recommended the use of sexual education as a tool to reduce the black population. What he did not mention was that sexual education was really a code word for homosexual education. And in 1975, you get special education. Special education was started in response to the Brown versus Board of Education decision of 1954. Supreme Court said you couldn't use race to segregate amongst children. So white racist scientists had to come up with a new way to keep the black kids away from the white kids because you couldn't use skin color. So they came up with, in 54, mentally gifted. Mentally gifted. The mentally gifted movement was originally a racist movement that sought to resegregate black kids from white kids. You couldn't use skin color, so now you would simply say the white kids are too smart to be in the same class with these dumb Negroes. Problem was it didn't work because a lot of the white kids weren't smart at all. So 20 years later, while the Civil Rights Bill was being rushed through Congress, in 1963, a white psychologist in Chicago came up with the learning disability. Let me give you the definition of the learning disability. Because most black kids who are receiving inferior education, which is all special ed is, inferior education, are receiving it because they were classified by someone with a learning disability. A learning disability is the failure on part of a child with normal intelligence to learn a scholastic skill. Let me say it again. A learning disability is the failure of a child with normal intelligence to learn a scholastic skill. Now I want you to cut off your Willie Lynch chip and I want you to cut your African mind on. What's wrong with that definition? It's paradoxical. It's incoherent. It's a contradiction in it. If my son has normal intelligence, how is it possible for him not to be able to learn how to read, not to be able to learn how to write, not to be able to learn how to do math? Does he have a learning disability? Or does the teacher have a teaching disability? Who's really at fault here? And why is it we never hear anybody talk about teachers, improperly trained teachers, white, racist, middle-class female teachers who don't even care about the kids they teach? And why is it that we as a black community assume that it's the child's fault when they don't learn something? Do you know that the American public school teacher is the only professional in this world who cannot be fired for doing a poor job? When the last time you ran into a white female teacher who was fired for not being a good teacher? You ain't never met one and you never will. The central problem of black people in America, whether it's education, economics, politics, or anything else, is that you refuse to accept the fact that you are trying to join a system that wants absolutely nothing to do with you. And you're forcing your children to deal with the same hell because you have a love affair with your abuser. Point blank, period. And that's the central issue. We built America. You built the whole world. Stop using that excuse. It ain't because you built America. It's because you love the white man. You love his wife. You love his books. You love his schools. You love his woman. You love his hair. You love everything about him. And you don't want to leave him. And he knows this. And that's what's going to make extermination so much more easy on his behalf. Because you're the only race in this country who don't expect this country to ever fall. Everybody else knows the fall is coming except the slave. Because for as long as you know, he's always been your master. And you do not want to part with him. Post-traumatic slavery disorder.
Hello. Hello.
I could care less how you eat. I could care less who you pray to. I care how you think. Because a vegetarian house nigga is still a house nigga. Did you hear what I just said?
Yes.
And I'm going to be crystal clear about that. Okay? Pan-Africanism, we don't get into all that other stuff. It's important. But ultimately, it's how you think. Because if you don't think with the best interests of your people, I want you to eat all the cholesterol you can get so you can get the hell out the way so we can take care of our business. Saving sellouts is long gone.
Yeah.
And we got to recognize that everybody is not going to come along for the struggle. That's another mistake that we make. One of the best decisions that you have to be able to engage in is being able to discriminate amongst those who can be saved and those who got to be let go. Because if you try to save the right people, they will destroy the whole movement, because some of us are absolutely committed to the furtherance of white supremacy. The black aristocracy, the elitist black clique, some ministers, some national black so-called civil rights leaders, some business owners, some politicians, some TV personalities. Their job is to do what? Stand between us and the power structure. Their job is to broker deals with you to keep you silent while you die. And you call them your leaders and you wonder why you ain't doing no better now than you was doing when Dr. King got killed. Because your average leader is a hustler and a pimp and a multi-millionaire, and he is not willing to separate from his riches for your benefit. But you so damn stupid, every time you have a march or an event or a lecture, you go running behind and worshiping, and he ain't done nothing for you but collect money for giving you a good speech. You deserve to be hoodwinked if you keep falling for that. You deserve it. Because you're the only people who don't hold your leaders accountable. You don't hold nobody accountable. You could come into the black community, kill somebody, go get saved, come back, and start all over again. That's right. Eddie Long doing it right now. He got saved all over again and probably molesting somebody else's boy right now in the name of a white Christ. And special education. You got 13 disabilities. You got mental retardation. You got emotional disturbance. You got autism.
Y'all got another color.
You got the specific learning disability.
Brother Umar, can we get another color?
Another color.
Yes, sir.
We got another color.
If you don't, I got one. I'll get you. Thank you.
Mental retardation, emotional disturbance, autism, specific learning disability. Number 5, other health impairment, and in parentheses, I'm going to put ADHD. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Because now you can fill black boys in special education because they taking medicine. Couldn't do that before 2000. You can do it now. Okay? ADHD is not a special ed diagnosis. ADHD is a mental disorder. ADHD comes out of this book. Clinical psychologists use this book. This book has no place in school. But guess what? The white folks said, well, guess what? If we can get their kid diagnosed with ADHD outside of the school, then we should allow them to come into the school with that report from the clinical psychologist, and with that report, we should allow them to also get a miseducation after they got a psychotropic medication. We done lost our damn minds.
That's it.
And because we don't want to raise our children, we letting white folks raise them, and they don't care the last thing about your son or your daughter. All they looking to do is to make a quick buck. Everything is about money. ADHD is about money. Special ed is about money. Psychotherapy is about money. The evaluation is about money. This ain't about mental health. It's about the financial health of middle-class white people. And some Negroes. Number 6, speech and language impairment. Number 7, orthopedic impairment. Number 8, traumatic brain injury. Number 9, deafness. 10, blindness. 11, a child who is deaf and blind together. 12, multiple disabilities. 13, and it just slipped my mind. What was 13? Developmental delay. Hold on, where's my hearing impairment? Speech and language impairment, orthopedic impairment, traumatic brain injury, deafness, and blindness, multiple disabilities.
You have your IDMI.
Okay, my hearing impairment. That's not a special ed category.
Your IDMI is your intellectually disabled mild and moderate.
That's here.
Yeah.
Hearing impairment. I've been looking on that. You sharp over
Special
there.
ed teacher.
I got it. Hearing impairment, and then I'm gonna put developmental delay with a parentheses. Okay. Mental retardation, emotional disturbance, autism, speech-specific learning disability, other health impairment, speech and language impairment, orthopedic impairment, traumatic brain injury, a deaf child, a blind child, a child who's deaf and blind, a child with multiple disabilities, a child with a hearing impairment, or a child with a developmental delay. Developmental delay is a label you only use on children primarily from ages 3 to 5. It's a preschool diagnosis. That's when you suspect that the child is delayed verbally or intellectually, or you suspect autism or mental retardation in the preschool years. Then they can get service through the intermediate unit. That's a preschool diagnosis. These are the sweet 13. These are the only 13. These are the special ed diagnoses. They come from the federal government. Each state has its own special ed regulations, but everyone must follow the law as laid down in Washington, D.C. There's only 13 special ed labels. I want to make this clear because y'all lump all psychology into one, and you got to separate school psychology, which is this. School psychology is the psychology of special ed. It's only 13 labels. And then you have clinical psychology. That's the psychology of the DSM. There's more than 400 of these. Dyslexia, bipolar, borderline, schizophrenia, ADHD, conduct disorder, they're in here. 2 different worlds. Y'all got me? Now, the way that this world sneaks into the school is when you go to the school with a report from the psychologist on the outside, because we don't diagnose this stuff in the inside. This stuff in this book